Welcome back to Breakfast with Baking and Throwing Words. We have Doug Bacon, whose last name inspired our series. We have Julie Zalua, who is fondly known to us as Jay-Z. She's in the background making sure all this works. And today we have Brian Leary, who is our Executive Vice President at Highwoods Properties there in Raleigh. And Doug and Brian met earlier and talked about strengths. And part of our goal in these sessions is to really take what we're learning, share it with you so you can consider how you might integrate that learning into your own work. So Doug, I know when you first met Brian, or it actually may have been after you knew him for a while and you were working on him or working with him on strengths. And the comment came out, when I wake up, I already feel behind. Can you share your thoughts on that? And then we'll engage Brian.
Sure thing. Thanks, Lynn. And Brian, thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to our conversation. Yeah, Brian and I worked together. Actually got to know each other through the chamber when you were in Charlotte and doing the inner city visits. One of the things looking back that I know about Brian is, he's a lifetime learner in strengths language. He has learner as his #1 strength. And so of course it makes sense that he would be traveling to other cities and really learning from what is happening there. But I can remember in some of those early conversations, one, I think I see over your left shoulder, you got a whiteboard on the wall. So yes, so I can remember in the 2 different offices that you had where we would have conversations, there's the big whiteboard behind there. And we would be talking about something and you would pause, turn around and put it up, put the visual up there and just kind of like literally connecting the dots and just how illustrative that was and how helpful that was. And then we were talking about just kind of your drive, and it just, you were at that point, I think about a year and a half into your role at that company, and just how you were getting to the point where you're finally able to put into practice those things that you knew you'd wanted to do 18 months earlier, but you needed to get your team to the place where they could see what you could see. And that was where you made this comment that it's like, every day I wake up and I feel like I'm already behind. And of course, from a strength perspective, we know a high achiever is certainly that reflective of that. But that just stuck with me all these years. And as I thought about kind of this unique time that we're in, and people have gone remote and the world is changing, the fact that just I was really curious to just kind of see, one, what you're learning, kind of see this through your eyes, and then 2, just to check back in and see what it's like, if you're still behind or if you've catching up or what you figured out and all that.
Well, thank you for having me, Doug and team, and for the good work you have done as a friend and partner in the past with Throwing Words and with the Strengths Finder. It was a huge tool that we were able to use previously at Crescent, and it's something I definitely want to continue talking to you guys about here at Highwoods. It's interesting. It hit me, this concept of almost what I'm supposed to be doing on this planet and the time that I have to do it. It hit me in 2 ways. First was some years ago, my uncle passed away in a small little town in South Central Illinois, town of about 3,500 people. And I think I was early on in my career in Atlanta and qualifying as the typical workaholic, coming out of Georgia Tech, putting in the 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, and was happy to do it. But anyway, we were there in this small town called Breeze, Illinois, 3,500 people, for the wake of this uncle. And I swear about 3,490 people went through the line of the wake. And being one of the family members, we were in the line, and it really struck me how this kind of simple member of our family who retired pretty early at age 60, worked at an auto assembly plant in St. Louis, but was in the town he grew up on, had such a huge impact on people, enough that they took it out of their time to come and provide condolences. So that I'm a visual learner. My tape's always running, so that went into the vault, and it really only snapped back at me a few years later when we were working in a mixed-use development that I was fortunate to be involved with in Atlanta called Atlantic Station. And we it's a series of buildings, shops, restaurants, places to live, work, and play. And at lunch, we were crossing the street, which was a kind of a busier street in this mixed-use community. And we had engaged one of our kind of security detail to be the kind of the traffic person in the center of this intersection, primarily to help pedestrians across the street, see people coming in, that kind of thing. And I remember crossing the street, going to lunch, and this young man, said, "Thank you, Mr. Leary." And it kind of hit me. And so I pulled off, I sent the group to lunch, and I pulled him over and I said, "What are you thanking me for? You just helped me cross the street." And he kind of told me the story. And this is, totally anecdotal. He said, had this place not been built, he would not have had a job. He was living in his van, between jobs. No one would give him a break. And that because this was built, this company gave him a break, and he was off and running, and he loved his job, and he could see a real career there. And boom, that's when it hit me. All this stuff snapped back, and literally, well, up until that point, being a architect by training, a real estate developer by trade, that so much of my focus during these work days were on building things out of concrete, steel, glass, brick, what have you. But the impact that I have the ability to make is on people. And I get to have an impact on people through the places I'm involved with, but it really was about people. And so where I'm going with all of this is along with the flashback on the wake, and now is that if you look at the continuum of humanity on this planet, my chapter here is probably just the end of this, side of this paper, right? Which, by the way, it's, with my daughter that drew on that. So if that's the only time that I have on this continuum, my ability to make a ripple on that continuum really has very little to things like concrete and stuff like that. It really has to do with people. And so that's when it really started to become clear to me, Doug, is that this anxiety I have, marginal self-diagnosed anxiety, self-diagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder on like, I gotta go, I got stuff to do, is really driven by that. Is that, I've been very fortunate. You can fill in any term. It's been either serendipity, luck, blessings, whatever it is, showered upon me to be in a position to impact people through the places we build. And that's kind of drives me every day.